do you think why do desires influence our actions?
Oh, so you disagree with the desires influencing our actions?
I'm just asking why. I haven't heard an argument for him.
Okay, so I'm just gonna give an example because it's easier than making like a full like argument for it. Wanting having chocolate or vanilla, and you want vanilla, right? Or you want whatever. You not even in other scenarios, your want will be a phrase of your desire, and then you act out on that. Like I choose to actually get it. So, do you think desires can influence or determine our actions?
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
I think. Okay, so in my example, I was saying that. Let's say I want something, and then I choose to go get it.
You want things based on our like pleasure and pain.
Sure.
Okay. Right. Pleasure and pain is like physical, empirically found.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, good. All right. So, what's your argument?
Just because desires are contingent upon certain things that are physical, right?
They're what?
Just because desires are contingent upon things that are physical doesn't necessarily mean that the desires in and of themselves.
But I'm saying desire. I'm saying desire is just like a thing we use to describe what our pleasure is and what our like pain is. I think desire is just things describing what our pleasure is. Like, let's say your ice cream thing, right? You said like we want ice cream. No, it's just like some people. It's just their pleasure.
What if they desire something that goes against their pleasure, like going to the gym?
That's fine. That means they'd be interacting with like our pain.
No. Let's say they don't like going to the gym.
Yeah, that'd be interacting with their pain. By pain, I mean things that they don't want.
Okay, so you think that's kind of a weird example, right?
I'm giving a weird example. I can give a simpler one if you want.
Yeah. What is your other example?
Alright, so basically, like, let's say right now I'm playing Fortnite, dude. Like, I like Fortnite, right? Because it's just something pleasureful. But let's say if I'm going to work out and I'm going to jog because I've been playing it too long, and I want my body to be physically healthy, not only for myself, not only for my looks, but just for health reasons, health benefits, right? I'm doing this by pleasure and pain. So it's paying me, right? But I'm still doing this by my pleasure because it's inspired by a long goal thing. That's why we set goals and things, and that's why we have things. And that's why we desire to do long-term things. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
But my entire thing is that we can drop the desire point, but my entire thing is that if you say the mind is physical, if you say the mind is non-physical, how do we have a connection with our physical bodies?
If you say our what?
If we say our mind is immaterial, how do we have a connection between our material bodies? So, wouldn't you say it's demonstrable that there's a connection?
Okay. One, I do not know what demonstrable means. I'm going to be completely honest with you.
Demonstrable just means like observable.
Oh, so like empirically found.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I think I define the mind as just the brain. What do you define the mind as? Like our consciousness and sentience?
Oh, well, no, I asked you in the beginning, do you think that consciousness is physical or non-physical? And you said...
Yeah, I don't think consciousness is the mind, though. I think the brain is the mind. That's what I just said. Do you think the mind is like consciousness and sentience?
Yeah, I think the mind is consciousness and sentience, yeah.
Okay, so you think the mind is consciousness and sentience? Yeah, let me think.
Yeah.
Think the mind is consciousness and sentience. Then I don't want to give it like a denotation because that's just going to go into useless semantics. So I think you can have your definition of what the mind is, but I think that's still just like I think you still don't. I think desire point was like I don't know why you dropped that. That's kind of dumb. I mean, I was eventually gonna have to like agree with that, but like
the desire point.
Yeah, because like the desire point's really your only thing, unless you can like use like any other emotion to prove that the mind, the immaterial things, what you call immaterial forming, what our mind would be, is like existing.
I asked you, and you said it was immaterial, right?
No, I said the consciousness, or not consciousness, my bad. I said sentience and stuff, but I said sentience and stuff like that. I think it's immaterial just because it's like an adjective. I explained earlier how we use adjectives and things like that to define what thing brings us pleasure and pain and stuff.
I mean sentience in and of itself, not like...
Yeah, that's subjective experience, though, which is defined by our pleasure and pain.
Okay, so you think it's physical?
Yes, that's my argument. not even
Okay,
arguing. That's just
sure.
my refutation.
Okay, sure. So we know adjectives and stuff, as you said, are immaterial, correct?
Yeah, they're just descriptive words.
Okay,
I mean, they could be
so yeah,
material if you like create them.
yeah, okay, yeah, I know, but you realize our subjective experience or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, has an interaction with adjectives and other things,
Has an
right?
interaction. I'm sorry. Restate that. I didn't catch that.
Our consciousness or subjective experience has an interaction with immaterial things like adjectives and descriptive terms. Because I can describe something using these immaterial things, and that shows not a correlation, sorry, a relationship.
I'm sorry. One more time. What has a reaction with descriptive words?
Our mind or our
Our mind.
sentience or
Okay,
our
but I think our
consciousness.
mind and sentience are descriptive words. Since they're just subjective experiences. I mean, do you think like sentience or
Well,
consciousness is anything other than subjective experience?
the words itself. Are you talking about like the adjectives?
Descriptive. Okay, yeah, I'll explain what adjectives. So basically, adjectives are just descriptive words. Like, let's say you're beautiful.
I know what
Things, those
adjectives
are just
is. I know what
basic.
adjectives is.
Okay, good. So yeah, you know what I mean. Or do you want me to give a better phrasing? I don't think there is any better phrasing. I don't know.
So you're talking about two things. I'm talking about the mind in and of itself, and then adjectives. I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think those are the
distinct
same thing.
Okay. So the mind. What do you define the mind as? Consciousness or subjective?
I define the mind as the brain. We have two different definitions. I'm just not arguing it because I don't want to go into semantics.
Okay, sure. So you think the brain is what is in charge of your consciousness and subjective experience, right?
I think the brain is... No. You're misconstruing. I think the brain is like what's like empirically found and what like gives us pain and pleasure, which are things that are empirical. And I think the things like the brain subjective experience, right? Or sorry, not the brain. My bad. The what you define as mind subjective experience, right? Those are things that are just like descriptive, right? Like, for example, if it's subjective, right, it's just my bad, it's not like objective, it's just something that we think of something, we describe it as something, it's just a descriptive word of sorts, since it's not like empirically or objectively proven.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
And my question is, where do you think the origin of consciousness or personhood is?
The origin of consciousness and personhood is you mean like what is the first person? Oh, I'm sorry, you're gonna need to explain again.
The origin, I mean, do you think the origin is a physical thing or a non-physical?
What do you mean by the origin?
By the origin, I mean, does my consciousness come from my physical brain or some non-physical construct like a mind?
Oh, physical brain.
Physical brain, okay.
Yeah.
We can agree that adjectives are non-physical, right?
Yeah.
Now,
if you're gonna say that adjectives, I just said adjectives come from the brain, I mean that like we think of the descriptive words.
Come from the brain. I don't think they come from the brain, no.
Okay, so good. So you don't think consciousness comes from the brain?
No, I don't think adjectives come from the brain.
But I define consciousness as an adjective. So do you have a contention with that?
It is an
adjective. Okay, so it is an adjective. So yeah.
Hold on. Consciousness is a descriptive term. Yes, it is an adjective, but what it's describing is not an adjective.
But it's describing pain and pleasure, which is what I've already explained. Do you have anything else that's describing?
Okay, sure. That's fine. Okay. But what I'm getting at here is our physical consciousness or personhood has an interaction with adjectives, as in I can describe whatever, right? And I'm using an adjective to describe it.
That's an interaction?
Yes, that's an interaction.
Do you know what interaction? Yeah, sure. Sorry, my bad. I didn't mean to come off condescending. What do you describe as like an or has like interaction? What do you think an interaction is?
An interaction would be like, can be a pattern. It can be a pattern relationship, or it can be a usefulness and dependency relationship. So basically, how I use the term cold to describe the temperature outside.
Oh yeah, I know what adjectives is. I study a little bit on those things.
Alright, so I think that I can use immaterial constructs with my material brain to describe the material reality, which would show a relationship between the physical and non-physical.
I think it's what's the word? And like lack for a better, I don't want to say like biconnective. I hate using big words like that. It's so weird. But let's see. Let me think about it real quick. I don't know. It's like I hate using big words for it because I don't like have. That's why I have to constantly say lack of a better word. Hold on, let me think about that real quick. Let's see. Okay, so he's describing like interconnective relationship, but I described it as adjective, and he agreed to being adjective. So it's just descriptive words. So if I'm describing something because it's coherent with pain and pleasure, which also was contended. Pain and pleasure, okay. So pain and pleasure empirically found about the problem we I think that, like I said, right, which we like already established before, like it's connected to pain and pleasure. So right now you're trying to establish a relationship, but truly you're only establishing a relationship between pain and pleasure. You see, descriptive words are just like things that we use to try to describe it. If you're saying that we use our brain to describe it, no, we use our brain to sort out what's pain and pleasure. And then when you're just trying to decide like what is pain and pleasure, sometimes we come up with words.
You said pain and pleasure is an empirically physical thing, right?
Yes. Do you want like a hardcore or something like that?
No, I agree to that, and we agreed that adjectives in and of themselves are an immaterial thing, right?
Yeah.
So there's still a relationship there.
You hear me?
Yeah, I hear
I just disconnected. That's so weird. Okay, so I'm just clear. You're like trying to describe something having like a relationship, but I think like really not all relationships like need an interaction, unless that's what you're defining a relationship is. Which then I'd like to ask, what's the interaction? Because you define interaction, but you haven't defined a relationship.
I think I'm using them like synonymously.
Synonymously.
Like,
what do you mean by that? Has the same thing. Okay, so you define. Okay, that's good. That's a little bit more clarity. So you define just that as just it being
an interaction.
Relationship
can be a relationship.
Oh, can be. So you're not describing them as the same thing.
Well, I'm using them as the same thing, but in the
so it has to be rather than can be.
Well, sure, I guess.
Okay.
I don't think it matters if it can or has to be.
I mean, if it doesn't matter, then continue. My bad. I thought it did matter to your argument.
Sure, but what is your point? I can explain.
I'm just giving a refutation. I'm not giving a point right now. I'm waiting for your point. Do you want me to restate my refutation? Okay, good. So basically, right, you're continuing upon how it can be. You're defining what you think like interaction is to a relationship. You said it can be. So I just want more clarity on that definition a little bit. That's all. Sure. And once we gain clarity, then I can like further progress my refutation. Because I want to fully understand.
Okay, well, then we can say has in this scenario then.
Okay.
And by a codependency or a single dependency, right? So how an example like
what is a codependency?
How I use the adjective cold to describe my physical what was it, pleasure and pain or whatever?
Right?
Yeah, so that directly corresponds to the subject we're talking about, which is I'm using something that is necessarily non-physical.
I think it just fits the context. Why does that correspond with it? Because by correspond, I don't know if you're using a denotation or just a informal one, but
I'll explain why it corresponds. Because I'm using something that we agreed is non-physical and something that is physical.
Okay, so you're using them at the same time. Why does that mean that it has a relationship?
In a dependency relationship. So I'm depending upon this immaterial thing to describe this material state.
Okay.
So that's
I have a better word. I don't know why I didn't think of this in the past. I was just discussing this with someone else today. Okay, so like I think they're just like I think you mean I just don't think you acknowledge like coexistence. That's fine. I sometimes forget, but I think it's more like just coexisting rather than a relation. The reason why I think this is just that, right? You described how we use them together, but like using them together, that just means they're coexisting as one thing. I don't think that means.
If we use them at all. Right. If I use immaterial things at all, that's the still use of an immaterial.
Yeah, by using. Yeah. I understand. You're trying to catch my word again. By immaterial, I don't mean. Or sorry, I said immaterial. By using, I don't mean like actually like interacting using. I mean, right, that we're describing them by pleasure and pain, and that we use words. Now, if you're gonna try to say that us using words mean we're physically interacting with words, I'm afraid.
I don't think we're physically interacting with them.
So what's your point? Because like the point I brought up for your thing was, I wasn't trying to interrupt. I was just trying to thing?
No, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Continue.
Basically, for like the entire thing that like I said for the beginning, right? For the whole God, the reason why we're even arguing for this, right, is just that I think that like he can't physically interact with the world, which he would need to in this sense, right? He's not describing the world, he's physically interacting with the world. So if he's going to physically interact with the world, then that means there needs to be some relationship rather than just coexistence. Now if there's just coexistence, that means he cannot interact, and if he cannot interact, that means there's no way to prove him. If there's no way to prove him, that means he doesn't actually exist, so there's no way of proving that he exists, meaning your argument like will fail like in the end.
Okay.
That's just my perspective from it.
Okay, so what do you think it's impossible for an immaterial thing to cause a material thing?
Impossible. Depends what you mean by cause, and I don't know.
Let's say there's immaterial being, and then he causes material being, like wills it into existence. Now this material being exists.
Let's see. Wills into existence.
Do you think there is some contradiction
here? Yeah, no, I'm saying let me think. I have to think of a refutation. Okay. Most of these arguments I've never heard before. I thought you were just going to give the traditional one, I guess. Or maybe that is the traditional one. I don't know. Let me think.
There's like 40 different kilometers.
It's like a lot. I need to study a lot. Let's see.
I don't even like this argument.
Yeah, dude. Let's see. Do I think it can cause it? So,
like on the third day.
What did you say? Okay, let's see. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it can.
Okay. So you don't think it can? What do you mean by that?
I mean, I don't think it can. You asked me if I thought it could, so I said
okay. So do you think there is some contradiction in it?
Do I think there's some like contradiction in it?
Yeah.
It's just the same thing that I brought up in the beginning. Why are we backtracking? Or actually, maybe you're not backtracking. That's my fault. But basically, right in the beginning, I stated that like I think, or not even think. I just disagree. I don't think there's a whole intangibility, and it's creating its own negation problem. So like, if you're gonna say that like,
sorry, pause for a second. Intangibility creating its own negation.
By that, yeah, I was gonna explain because my words.
Why is that a problem?
Yeah. So basically, it's a problem. Yeah, I'm trying to spell out the contradiction rather than restating the proposition. Basically, it's a problem because then again, intangibility means that you cannot physically that you're not physically interacting with anything. Tangibility means that you are physically interacting with anything. The universe is described as a tangible essence. It's matter, space, and time. So. Actually, no, I used that wrong. The universe basically is physical. It consists of matter, space, and time. We have to acknowledge the matter part. You need to make up matter. You need to interact physically with matter in order to create the universe. And my problem with this is, right, it may fit the criteria. Actually, we haven't even gotten to the atemporal point yet. But basically, the main problem with this is that it doesn't fill the criteria for creating matter. Because how can, if you're intangible, because you haven't spelled out like having like some type of mental will or control over the tangibility of your God. So if it's constantly intangible, right, and it's constantly never interacting with anything physical, then how can it interact with anything physical if it's never interacting with anything physical?
My problem here is that unless there is some direct contradiction, it's not logically impossible, only physically impossible. Like
what do you mean?
We have to.
Yeah, sorry. Go on.
So as long as we can say like physical impossibilities like moving faster than the speed of light, or material substances, right, cannot physically interact with immaterial substances because of what the substance is exactly. But I think that in no way demonstrates a logical contradiction. And since there is no logical contradiction, we agreed that a while ago that God has a power, not God, but the being has a power, right? And this power is specific to create universes. I think there is no problem unless there's a demonstration that this power, quote unquote, is contradictory.
Okay.
I don't think that's a problem.
Oh, sorry. Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. So basically, right, what you're saying right now, first off, we established that like what power and powerful means. We established the difference, and you established that he has a power to do things. Now you gave the analogy into your. I think you described it as fictional terms. I don't know, but you gave okay. So you gave like your fictional term about like what reality warping to multiverse. It'd be considered kind of multiversal, basically. What did God do? But basically, in like a multiversal, universal scale. Basically, this would be a power, right? But now we're going into why he has this power and why he doesn't have this power. So that's what you just acknowledged there was kind of like irrelevant. That we have to backtrack on what actually is there. And what I was, and my second contention, well, like your second contention, right, is that I'm saying that basically, it cannot create its thing, unless your thing has a willful ability to like interact or to like be tangible. Unless you're using like a different definition of what intangibility is, he would be intangible all the time. If he's intangible all the time, that means he just can't interact with physical things. I mean, unless you're gonna like pick like one-sided. I forgot the specific word for it, like one-sided intangibility.
Okay, so what if I can just say that we can just reject that and just say that, do you know what simultaneous causation is?
Nope, because I'm not smart.
It's when the cause the cause and the effect happen at the same exact time.
Cause and effect happen at the same time.
I'll send like the actual definition, Dave, since he's.
I like never thought about that. Okay, let's see.
So, what is the problem of God becoming a physical being as soon as the universe was caused?
Becoming a physical being as soon as the universe is caused. Because you described him like intangible. That'd be one-sided intangibility, which you never described to him. If you want to describe that now, then sure, we can go along, and then we can try to argue from there. Did you hear me? Oh, my bad.
Yeah, I heard you. Okay. Well, we can agree that God is bound by logic.
And he's bound by logic, meaning he's like entailed by logic?
By bound by logic, I mean can only do things that are logically possible. Okay,
does that mean like logic came before him?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so so he is logic.
Yeah.
Okay, what do you have like power? Oh, nature. So like, he's like it's his property. Because I think a nature of something is like its. Oh, okay. So like, God is extra logical.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he's illogical.
Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. So if he's illogical, how can you form like a valid conclusion from that then?
I'm gonna send the simultaneous causation definition.
I think we should focus on this point because I think I accidentally got you in a word game. I kind of want to clarify. You can take it back if you want, but extra logical means you're outside of logic, and if you're outside of logic,
then... I didn't know what that meant. Okay, I didn't mean
yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. Okay, so what do you mean?
I mean by bound by logic, I mean can only do things that abide by the laws of logic, as in the laws of logic and God are shared in being, you could say, because the laws of logic would be objective, eternal, absolute, and God is objective, eternal, and absolute.
So like, but like the problem with this is the same problem I had with this one dude. I remember. Basically, you're saying there's like three things that can happen, right? They can coexist, meaning he's extra logical, meaning he's illogical. One, it can be entailed by the other, which means that one of them will have to be either extra logical or one of them would have to be not atemporal, which is one of the properties you ascribe to this God or transcendental mind, whatever you describe him as. I'm pretty sure it's God, right?
Why can't logic just be an attribute of God?
Oh, okay, that means he's extra logical since it's an attribute rather than an actual being.
What do you say?
Because that means like God is like entailing by the laws of logic, meaning that he's extra logical. Because logic is sorry, I'll explain a little bit more on that. So logic is just the study of reasoning. Off the top of my head, I think like the study of reasoning and how we come to form arguments. And laws of logic are just like logical equivalencies used to like deduce things. That's how we described it in my class, at least. And basically, right?
I'm talking about like the three laws of logic: law of identity, law of non-contradiction.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's just logical equivalencies used to reduce complex scenarios or actions. By reduce actions, I mean blah 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 equals a blah blah blah, no contradiction, therefore meaning that if there's a contradiction, it's not correct. Sheesh, friggin' excluded middle is this or that. Yeah, all these things are just like logical equivalencies. It's literally it. So if it's outside of these logical equivalencies, that just means it's extra logical since it's also outside of the study of reasoning. It's outside the study of reasoning. That means that like it's just illogical.
If I were to say God in like a foundational logic, God is a being and logic is just a symptom of God, or in God's nature. Symptom. What's the problem with that?
What do you mean by symptom? I'm sorry.
Let's say if God exists, then logic exists because logic is what God is.
Are you like explaining coexistence, or are you explaining like some type of biconditional relationship?
They're basically what logic is just just the same thing as God, or not the same thing. Sorry, just a part of God, just a part of God's attribute. It's an attribute of God. That's an example.
Yeah, but like that's the same thing. Like then it just kind of goes back to the same thing I said. How like that would just mean it's extra logical. Because if one was to ascribe a property to one another, that means you'd have to be entailing of that property. If you're entailing of that property, that means you have to be outside of that property. Unless
would you agree that your existence is a property?
disconnected. Can you restate that?
If you exist, would you agree that your existence is a property of reality?
I think existence is not a property of reality. I think existence is kind of like a.
Actually,
hold on. Let me rethink that. My bad. I want to retake that. Let's see. What was your question again? I didn't quite hear it.
If you exist, is your existence a property?
If you exist, is your existence a property? So if you live, is life a property? If you eat, is eating a property? I have to think about that. I've never thought about that before. Is it a property? I think. Then we have to go back to what. So property is just like the same as using a descriptive word. So you're existing. So I suppose it could be used as a descriptive. Okay, yeah, sure. Why not? I suppose it would. Yeah.
So that's like the same point, because existence we would recognize as a property, right?
Okay, that's fine.
But that doesn't mean you like transcend or are outside of that existence. So if
I think I get what you mean, but I think you were also misconstruing what I was trying to say. So basically, that means existence is like entailing of us. We exist. Because unless you want to give, I kind of want you to give another analogy, because that's going to kind of mess you up. Because like if you're going to say existence and its specialty, right? What makes it so different from other properties is because if you don't have existence is entailing of us. If we were entailing of existence, we would not exist. So it kind of is only a one-sided connection. So can you please give another analogy?
I'm not saying that God entails logic. I'm saying that logic and God, logic is within God, right? That's my point.
That's the same thing. It's just in different words.
No, I don't think it's the same thing, because I think an entailment is a different type of relationship, because it would lead to the exclusion, not the inclusion, right? So
exclusion, not inclusion.
A better
what does that mean?
A better explanation would be P implies Q, right? P entails Q. If P exists, then Q exists, right? That's a simple like entailment.
See, I know what modus ponens is, but I'm not sure what you're trying to use here. My bad. I'm kind of confused.
Right. And so the example of God and logic would be God's existence is logic.
Oh, so you're saying God is... So I'm fine with God being logic, but then that's just going to be like a burden of proof that you'll never be able to prove, because it's like an explorable thing about God.
Well, again, that would just be like my definition. So I don't.
Let's see. See, this is the problem. That's why I don't really like... I don't know. Just gonna get into semantics. Let me try to think of a way without semantics. Basically, your definition, I would suggest from this point on, since we're getting to like the grippy core of it, and soon we're going to go to conclusion, so now we're going to the grippy core, now it's like the mid place of it.
Already an hour.
Oh, what did you say?
Hey, y'all heard this thing, I was taking too long.
I mean, you can, I think Zaji has time, or I'm like, you're going to force him into VC. He's just going to stay here while I'm torturing him, so you can go if you want.
Nah, I'm just saying. Like,
wait, hold on. Wait. What?
Yeah, you're gonna stay here.
It's basically, Kenny,
Okay, hold on. Do you just want to go to conclusions now? Do you just want to go to conclusions?
Well, I feel like that'd be negative for both of us. But then again, I have to think, because like if I go to, it'd be very, because we haven't like gotten fully progressed our argumentation.
Even if it's considered I lose this, I wouldn't like care.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I wanted to have like a fair thing, because I've been like really getting, because I would be in like really high regard.
The devil's advocate, right?
Well, I know, but like it's like one of the, because from what I've seen, we like agree on like majority of things. I think on everything.
Yeah, are you an atheist too?
Yeah, I'm agnostic.
Yeah, so if we even if we were to like switch positions and I were to beat you, I don't even think that would be considered like a fair topic anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
All right, so so do you want to start off on conclusions, or do you want me to start
hold on. Actually, yeah, sure. I think basically I won due to the fact that, well, if we're gonna go step by step, the first thing he tried to use the I believe it's called it's like an expansion of Achilles' turtle. He tried to use that expansion, that analogy. That didn't work until he tried to describe has an infinite progression. Then I described the future as always being the past, since it will become the past, therefore it already is the past. No contentions with this. Afterwards, then we went into the whole nitty-gritty about sorry, I have a bad memory. I'm trying to remember. After that, we went to like the nitty-gritty of about how his properties work and about how physical things cannot interact with things. That was like the main point. And then I think I won that point over, not only by describing like the empirical things of what desire is and why desire is like a descriptive word. Afterwards, he tried to suggest a relationship, interconnected relationship between desire desire and us using it. Then I tried to establish what's it called? What's the word for it? My bad. Coexistence. And then I explained why this would go hand in hand with God. After that, then we went to the whole point about whether logic and him are like coexisting. First he tried to say that he mistaken. I just want to point out he mistakenly said this, so I gave him the chance to take it back. He said that it was extra logical. I said that means basically outside of logic, meaning he doesn't operate within logic. He said, and then he tried to say it was like a property of his. After that, then when he attempted to say that, then I just refuted it by saying that it's not necessarily. That just means that it's entailed by one thing. After that, then he tried to give an analogy about existence and whatnot. Then I explained to him why existence is a specialty from other properties, and that existence is a one-sided connection. Same with logic. After that, then we got into the whole semantic point about we kind of backtracked a little bit about the first properties of what he would be, about power and stuff like that, which is kind of irrelevant because he said that he was just restating it. Then I was like, okay, fine, we're good. So yeah, that's basically the point I won. I don't think he proved his existence. I don't think he fully proved the coexistence of God and stuff like that. That's basically it.
Okay, so I think I won because if we were to just do this premise by premise, my original premise that he just accepted of everything the beginning to exist as a cause. Okay, he agreed to that, and then he agreed to the universe beginning to exist. And then the first thing he disagreed to was the impossibility of an actual infinite or an infinite past amount of events. And then I eventually won that point too. He agreed to that there is a finite past amount of events. And that entailed all the way up to my final premise of there being an immaterial sentient being that caused the universe. But then the only thing that he disagreed upon after this was the causal interaction problem, which is the only point I actually think he won. Was the causal interaction problem. So just based on points, I would say I won, and that's all I have for my.
Yeah, Zaji. Before you finish, I just want to give you I wouldn't say that I won that because then that's just going to kind of prove my point. So rather than winning, I think we just decided to go to conclusions to avoid drawing it out.
You guys know that I wasn't serious whenever I said give conclusions. I was literally making a joke.
I mean, I suppose we already did.
But great. I don't care. Hey, Zeref.
Okay, so I was my mute, right?
Do you know what Aldrin's number is?
Hold on, sorry, I didn't hear you. Whoever was saying it. What do you say?
Do you know what Aldrin's number is?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Okay. Who won? I'm assuming.
I guess I'll say something. I'll be number one, actually good debate. Kind of surprised that the fucking Archimedes, holy shit. Kind of surprised that you knew as much as you actually did.
I study a lot. I just hang around with the Zazel and stuff like that, so I do a lot of fiction. But because I studied that in my school and stuff like that. That's I just finished my 5 philosophy units.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Because I was okay. I definitely theology, I was okay, probably Zeref's gonna slap in 5 minutes. Here we are, a 30-minute split later. Here we are, but Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it a buck. You guys kind of concluding kind of did fuck it. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't like good for either of you guys to conclude right now.
Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
think
trying to say.
Archimedes was doing well, and I think Zeref was doing well. But I'm kind of pissed that Gray just came in and jokingly said, "Conclude, conclude." Fuck you.
Yeah,
nigga.
that's my bad. I thought he was being serious.
But yeah, it's not your guys' fault for thinking he was serious, and it's not his
Kill
fault
yourself.
that
I
he
hate
conveyed
you,
his
Shut
joke
up.
well.
Shut up.
Yeah, maybe you should work on your fucking sarcasm. But anyways, right? I seriously have to say inconclusive because I think that I think Archimedes did refute a lot of debate or like refute a lot of the arguments. Gray, you act like you were paying attention. But anyways, that's the point, right? I think Archimedes has refuted a lot of Zeref's points, but I do think Zeref pushed a lot of other points as well. I think the the presentism argument, I think fine at first, but then you guys moved on to, you guys went on to a lot of points. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, we did.
I can go point by point. Basically, after the presentism argument, we went into the descriptive argument because then he was arguing like a sense of determinism. Then I explained what sense of determinism would be, and then I was basically arguing from that point. Then we went into
determinism. And then you guys went into immaterialism and said if this is do you believe material? Yeah. I kind of wish that debate didn't end right there, but also I am kind of thankful because it is 11:30 at night and I'm not trying to fucking stay here for 3 hours on a theism debate. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, no, definitely highly recommend you guys debate again. Specifically, not at fucking 11 or 10 or whatever.
It's just the only time I could catch him.
On like a position that we both actually like agree with, because I only took theism because I don't know how comfortable he would be taking theism, and I don't care.
Yeah, I'm not that good with theism.
Right.
I mean, I studied it a little bit for 2 weeks, and I was like, forget this, it's too much.
Yeah, right. So that's why I took it, and I don't know, I don't think I'm a godly debater. I just
What's good, cuties?
What's up? Hello.
What's good, babes?
I knew all
Hey,
these
Archimedes,
Yeah.
have you heard of Aldrin's number?
I want to say yes, but I honestly want to say no because I most likely forgot.
Yo, Archimedes, what is your
Well, it's a made-up thing, so no, you haven't.
Okay, good.
Wait, hold up. Archimedes, what is your standpoint on what's it called?
I'm sorry, what?
What is your standpoint on two genders? Do you think that there's more than two genders?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
I mean, does anybody disagree with that? I'll debate you on that.
Everyone
right now.
forgets about what intersex is. That's the problem. There's no way to argue against that.
Anybody want to debate how there's not two genders or not? I'll debate you on that.
I think everyone agrees.
No. I'm on the side that I believe that there's more than two genders. You're saying that?
Sure, I'll say there's only two.
And
Wait, hold on, please. Zaji, who do you think won? And then Gray.
To be fair with you, I wasn't fucking paying attention.
Okay, we'll just leave that inconclusive then.
Yeah.
And Gray was previously taking a shit.
Wait, no. I believe the Zeref got punched in the mouth 7 different times.
Yeah,